Say hello to what may be the worst horror movie anthology of all time. Sharon Miller's The House of the Dead. If House of the Dead is uniquely bad, it's not unique in being bad. By definition, movies organized as anthologies, mashups of 3 or 4 discrete short tales strung together with framing narratives, have trouble establishing an overall sense of momentum, since whatever story they have to tell is periodically disrupted by clunky transitions as one episode ends and the film passes through the framing narrative on the way to the next. Nowhere is this handicap going to be more evident than when those trying to assemble such a product have no idea how to make a movie in the first place. Such is the case with House of the Dead, an unforgivable excretum doubtless meant to cash in on the runaway success of Trilogy of Terror. Not only is House of the Dead unable to meet the unique challenges of the episodic horror film, its makers barely seem to know which end of the camera to look through at all. The curtain opens on a soft-focused love scene as Talmadge, our hero, rolls around with his mistress between the sheets, talking with regret about the wife to whom he's being unfaithful and declaring his need to return to his own hotel. He catches a cab, but, unfamiliar with the city, lets himself be dropped off on the wrong street corner in a torrential downpour. If his mistress lives there, why is he so unsure how to get around? Desperate to get out of the rain, he ducks into a covered doorway. Presently, a craggy old man opens the door and offers him shelter. It crystallizes that the man is running a funeral parlor and proposes to mark the time until the weather clears by regaling Talmadge with tales of how the various embalmed corpses there came to be in the place they're in. This, such as it is the movie's wraparound, and the rest of House of the Dead is mostly taken up with flashbacks as the stories the mortician tells absorb the screen. First, we meet Miss Sibylle, who, despite harboring a pathological animus against children, has for some reason landed a job as a school teacher. After a brief commute home from campus, where she hisses and hoots at several youngsters lest we miss the point, we're treated to relentless tedium as she putters silently around the house, sporting a free-floating scowl as she cooks dinner and takes a shower. How she affords such a generous home on the pay she gets as a teacher, and in all likelihood not a very good one, is less than evident. As she does so, the movie treats us to several cat-out-of-the-curtain type false scares that more or less totally fail to build suspense. Then, suddenly, she's attacked by several mutant children with gopher teeth who kill her. No, seriously, that's all that happens. Back briefly to the funeral home where Talmadge, understandably, expresses disbelief at this preposterous slice of death vignette.
Being bitten to death by children?
I never said children.
Then it's on to our sophomore tale. A serial killer with no charisma and an off-puttingly obsessive personality nevertheless manages to entice several young women back to his apartment, where he murders them and captures the crimes on film until he's caught. Again, that's all that happens.
Voila. Your life is gone. It's disappeared.
Funeral home. Talmadge again expresses histrionic disbelief. Story number 3 involves a pair of superhumanly smug homicide detectives, one Tolliver, an American, and the other McDowell from Scotland Yard, who team up to solve the case as several threatening letters land on Tolliver's desk and they try to find the perpetrator. I won't give away the ending, but unless you nap your way through the first half of this episode, which is likely, I promise you won't be surprised. The final outing opens on a callous businessman stomping down a city street, launching into a bitter tirade when the store owner fails to sell him chewing gum, and berating a street bum to get a job. He'd actually have made a perfect match for the dour school teacher in the beginning, had she not already been gnawed through by the aforementioned pack of preteen rodents. Somehow he falls through some kind of urban wormhole into a mysterious and elaborate hall of psychological tortures, where he's nearly crushed by an elevator, impaled on a matrix of spikes, and subjected to a number of other mock executions. Subsequently, an unseen presence starts rolling wine bottles at him, and poetic justice ensues. It's movies like House of the Dead that leave me nonplussed when people describe comparative national treasures like Teenage Zombies and Robot Monster as being among the worst films in the world. House of the Dead is amateurish without being charming and cynical without providing insight. It's as seedy as a Z-grade gore or porn movie without offering even the dubious reward of explicit sex and violence. In short, it has no redeeming qualities of any kind, and any praise it might receive. It has a surprisingly high user rating on IMDB. Is doubtless from viewers relieved that they didn't just watch the recent torture-sploit film by the same name, which by all reports is somehow even worse. If I had to diagnose House of the Dead's many ills, I'd say that its makers seem to have cut short its development every step of the way. The overall concept is deficient. In case you haven't already surmised, the thread linking all these stories is that the deceased in each case is a victim of his or her own failings of character. And this is fine as far as it goes, but feels more like a first step on the road to a premise rather than an idea in its own right. Stumbling forward from this half-baked starting point, screenwriter David O'Malley spreads the premise of each episode like a thin gruel. We never see a hint of a motive why the killer is driven to his deeds, why the school teacher hates children so, exactly what genus of bug the businessman has up his ass. The detectives in the third story talk in haughty language like landed gentry for some reason, when from everything I've heard, real-life detectives are fouler-mouthed than stand-up acts.
That's a really excellent vintage, don't you agree?
Most assuredly. Fragrant. Softly smooth, yet distinctly melodious.
A very refreshing analysis.
At last, when the cast and crew assemble to execute this weak sauce of a screenplay, concocted from a stillborn travesty of a premise, they're left to bumble about unsure as if in a fog. The end result doesn't give the sense of being a bad movie. Rather, it feels like it isn't a movie at all. It's more like an exhibit thrown hastily together to provide first-year film students an example of how not to proceed, or a demo meant to be employed as part of a pitch to a potential investor. I don't plan to make this, you can almost hear Sharon Miller explaining to a skeptical studio exec, but with your financial help, I'd like to make something like it, only as an actual film. In sum, this is a movie to watch only if you feel like there's something in your life you need to atone for. If you have a hankering for a collection of horror short subjects, you'd be better off popping in CREEPSHOW one more time, or better yet, cracking open a collection by Poe, Lovecraft, Clive Barker, or Joyce Carol Oates. If there's one good thing about this movie, it's that it's so damn bad, it makes reading look appealing again.
Sleeping passions turn to ashes. Nothing's real anymore.